And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
It all begins with a sense of frustration over a new Snow White adaptation that landed with a thud. The project was supposed to be a grand retelling of a cherished classic. Another source of discord came from the actress's political stances. She took aim at certain voter groups, posted strong language online, and later walked back some comments when the reaction intensified. A portion of potential viewers concluded they'd had enough, particularly those who identified with the political side she'd criticized. Bill Maher's comedic style involves pointing out such ironies, pointing to the folly of alienating half the country and expecting them to still buy tickets. The apology Zegler offered seemed half-hearted to those who remembered her initial remarks. By that point, the damage was done, and calls for boycotts spread, further eroding the film's prospects. All of this convinced some audiences that the project was more about ideology than storytelling. The shift from a charming fairy tale to a platform for modern commentary lost the essence of what made Snow White endure for generations.
Doesn't need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
And then Rachel Zegler plays Snow White. I think Gal plays the. I was not a child, so I don't follow.
In the grand scheme, this Snow White reboot served as a warning that overshadowing a beloved story with overt moralizing can strip away the magic that has kept it alive for decades. The dwarfs, the songs, and the innocence that once made the film so charming were all overshadowed by an agenda that felt more important to the creators than preserving the nostalgic joy many expected. Bill Maher's scathing commentary emphasized how this misfire managed to annoy a broad base, from those nostalgic for the original to others who felt they were being preached to. There were also rumblings that the two leads in the film clashed. Rumors hinted that they didn't see eye to eye off-screen, compounding the perception that the production was chaotic. While behind-the-scenes tensions aren't unusual in Hollywood, the sense that the final product was overshadowed by personal disputes and political rants only made matters worse.
I am here with you to cry, to yell, to hug, to wax poetic on how the left continues to fail us in forging a new path forward. This loss should not have been, and it certainly should not have been by so many votes. I echo Ethel Cain's statement more than anything.
Rachel Zegler emerged as the face of the production, and her statements, along with the film's creative choices, drew the ire of both audiences and commentators. Bill Maher, known for a direct style, ended up taking a shot at the situation, pointing out how the actress's remarks and the film's apparent agenda combined into a spectacular misfire. From the outset, the experience felt disappointing to those who expected a respectful homage to the original story. The actress spoke in interviews about how her character has no interest in the kind of love story that once defined Snow White. While some might applaud a modern angle, many found the shift jarring. Bill Maher seized on those contradictions, pointing out that if an actress despises core elements of the character's legacy, it might be tough to convince the audience to buy into a new version.
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's how
golden employment opportunity for dwarves.
There's not that many scripts that come down the pike.
Not only 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarf jobs.
And word of mouth was dismal. The few who enjoyed the film were drowned out by those who felt betrayed by the radical shift in tone. In comedic segments, Bill Maher underscored the fiasco by showing how the film's own star seemed to relish belittling older fans' expectations, then acted shocked when they didn't show up. Audiences realized that cynically rewriting a classic could come with heavy consequences if the core message became unrecognizable. Some pointed out that the project might have worked if it had shown more respect for the spirit of the original, even if it updated minor details. Instead, they said it started from a place of dismissiveness, labeling the old story as irrelevant. From there, it moved on to large-scale changes that took away the dwarfs, redid the romantic angle, and introduced new songs that didn't capture the timeless enchantment. Bill Maher's critique homed in on the irony of erasing almost everything that once made the film beloved, then acting baffled when viewers rejected it. As word spread of the severe financial losses, the studio began facing real consequences. Internal sources hinted at frustration with the marketing approach, the star's public comments, and the final creative direction. The brand had banked on the unstoppable power of a legacy title, only to learn that people don't automatically embrace anything slapped with the Disney name. Bill Maher saw humor in the notion that a sure bet turned into a cautionary example, all because the production was determined to lecture rather than delight. In the aftermath, industry watchers debated whether the fiasco would provoke serious re-evaluation. Would the studio continue forging ahead with updated spins on old stories, or step back to ensure future remakes kept the fundamental appeal that made these tales so enduring? Some argued that there's a balance to be found in introducing contemporary sensibilities without discarding the fairy tale's heart. Bill Maher's perspective was that humiliating one's own source material in the eyes of loyal fans was a guaranteed way to sink a project, no matter how big the marketing budget. The star herself, upon seeing the backlash, tried to temper her comments, but large segments of the public had already tuned out. Social media was filled with disdain, while a portion of critics who initially praised the film found themselves questioned for their early endorsements. The entire situation grew into a maelstrom of bad publicity. Bill Maher, in comedic fashion, pointed out that telling audiences how to feel about their childhood favorites is rarely a route to success. The escapist nature of classic Disney works stands in stark contrast to the pointed messages inserted into this adaptation. Critics said the prince, once a vital and heroic figure, was turned into a minor participant. Worse yet, certain interviews allegedly framed him as more of a creeping presence than a noble character. This approach, aimed at making Snow White an empowered individual who fights her own battles, wound up stripping away the fairy tale romance that endeared generations to the original. According to Bill Maher, it was a self-sabotaging move for a studio to try so hard to avoid potential backlash that they swung the pendulum too far in another direction. The same Disney name that had once guaranteed excitement now struggled to pull families to theaters. Reports of near-empty venues flooded social media, with parents mentioning they felt uneasy about the film's messaging, while others had lost interest after hearing the actress ridicule the original. The shortfall in revenue was so profound that some insiders predicted losses that could crest well over $100 million. Bill Maher's commentary about humiliation revolved around how a project loaded with resources and built on a famous property could still implode when it alienates its core audience. The dwarfs' absence was seen as symbolic of the film's overall approach. Rather than carefully updating them or respecting what they represented, the adaptation seemed to try to replace them with bandits, magical beings, or some combination thereof. None of it resonated with viewers who loved the distinct personalities from the original. Critics claimed the production repeatedly backtracked, uncertain how to handle these characters in a way that would pass the scrutiny of modern sensibilities. Bill Maher discussed how trying too hard not to offend can sometimes create a bigger issue, illustrating that good intentions can backfire if they ignore what made the original story so beloved. Audiences also noted that the new Snow White insisted on offloading chores onto others, reversing the dynamic in the 1937 tale where she cleaned up the dwarf's cottage as a show of gratitude. The reimagined scenario had her marching in and directing everyone else to work, which made her seem, to some, less likable or relatable. Coupled with the actress's interviews belittling traditional romance, the entire portrayal felt smug and missing the warmth that once defined the character. Bill Maher's assessment was that this shift accidentally turned the protagonist into a nagging figure who wasn't appealing for family-friendly entertainment.